makeover of this gorgeous John Widdicomb long dresser from the 1950s. This is made of solid walnut. It's not a walnut veneer. This is actually solid walnut. It's got some bumps and bruises and gashes and dents and things, but man, it's a beautiful piece. The finish on top is failing, so I'm going to start with a carbide scraper. You can see I'm just doing it with one hand and it was coming right off. So I thought, okay, if the carbide scraper works, let's just go in with sandpaper, and that didn't prove to be very successful. So changed back to the carbide scraper, and the carbide scraper is just making quick work of this. This finish is failing, but it's 70 years old, and you know, who knows, over the years it may have had water or whatever they were cleaning it with, or it's just old. Time to go. Got everything vacuumed up and then went in with my 150 grit again to get it all cleaned up. And you might be able to see now when I switch to the 220 grit here, this dark area that I'm passing around right here. Right there, it's dark, and it didn't show in the original finish, but for some reason now that I have it stripped, you really can see it. So instead of keeping it natural as I thought I might, I'm going to go in and stain it. So now I'm using my orbital to just do all of the flat areas, and I'm realizing that I probably need to go back and just do all the rounded areas first, which I tried with my surf prep, and then I decided it was actually easier to do by hand. So I'm going in to do all of the rounded areas first. And then taking my carbide scraper once again to do the side, but not as successful there. That finish was on there for good. So I went in with an 80 grit. I know that's extreme, but this is solid wood, not a veneer. I'm also using a 80 grit sanding net here to get this off. I would never do this with veneer. It would just tear the veneer apart, but looking at something that's solid wood, I can really get through this finish quickly. And then of course I've got to work all the way through the grits here from 80 to 120. I do 180, 220. And if you don't have a sanding block, you should. I'll be sure to link it when I'm done, but this one is round. It fits right in that groove. It's so perfect. And then I change the other end and it's round in the other direction. One is concave, the other convex. So it's just amazing to get into these spots. This hardware is so cool and unique. There's these little cubes on there that come off. It holds the entire pull and a back plate that fell. But I'm taking the video really to remember how they go back on, just in case, because it was very unique. Even the inside of this dresser is amazing and 70 years old. It's like it was never used. Now that I have all the round areas all complete, I can go in with my orbital and make quick work of these flat areas. I'll just go and do all 9 drawers and just make sure everything's sanded. I did the top of every drawer. I even flipped them over, did the underside of drawers. These are so cool. That solid wood, it just fits right into that groove. Oh, this is such a cool piece. And you can see now that carved wood. That is not a veneer. This is the dresser that is all about sanding, and here I am sanding some more. Shocking. But we sand and we sand and we sand some more. And after a couple days of this, I could barely feel my fingers. Gloves probably would have been a good option, but yeah, as you can see here, not wearing them. I did have one little accident with my carbide scraper, so it caused a little damage there. Just filling it in with some wood filler that is stainable. You got to make sure it's stainable. Otherwise, it will just stay white. Here it is, all nude. I wish I could have just kept it that color. I'm just sanding down the rest of the filler. I'm going over the entire piece one more time with 220, just because I've been setting stuff on top of the dresser and working with everything, so I just want to make sure that everything is good to go before I start staining. I did 220 with the orbital on everything flat. Everything round I went in with sanding sponges because they're round and I could really get in everything. So it's time to address the base. Took out all the drawers because it weighs 3,000 pounds with them in. But turn it upside down and I'm unscrewing the base. I'm hoping that I can just pop it off and stain it away from that, but after taking out the screws, I realized it's not just screws, it's glued. It's glued there. And even after 70 years, that glue was going nowhere. I took a rubber mallet and was hoping I could just pop it apart, but nope, it's not happening. So I'm not going to damage the base just to get it off. We're going to go ahead and I have to finish it in place. So I grabbed my sanding nets again and went to work, and it didn't take long before I said this is going to take forever, so we're going to go get the surf prep. I'm putting a sanding pad on there, and then I'm going to put the net over the top of it, and this will make quick work of this. I also have it hooked up to my shop vac, so it does collect all the dust. You can see this is just working right through the rest of that finish. And then of course I have to work the grits back through. I didn't show that entire process because it's a lot of sanding and we all know how to sand, but I started with the net in these areas and then worked through everything. Okay, once I got that down to the 220, I'm going in with some wood conditioner. This is just Minwax wood conditioner for water-based stain, because right there you can see I'm using a water-based stain. This is Saman stain in the color American Walnut. I almost exclusively just use Saman stains. I love, they're water-based, but they're super pigmented, and I just love them. I'll go ahead and make sure and link that also. So I'm just putting the first coat on here. I'm going to go in. I am going to end up doing 2 coats. This was a really thin coat, and I'm going to actually go in with it a little darker. You can see that's 2 coats now. And I took the time to make a little video there of it, and it was starting to dry. So I hurried and grabbed my mister, and because this is water-based stain, I can just get it wet, and it'll stay wet, and now I can wipe it all off. I wiped until I got the color I wanted, which is that. And then once it dries, it'll be less orange. But same process on the body of the dresser. This is wood conditioner. Just do everything there. And the walnut again. And then right into wiping it off. So it looks darker because once the wood gets wet underneath with this stain, the natural pigment of the wood just comes out, which is, you know, quite orange and all. So once this dries, it will look down a little different. I would let it dry overnight and then went in with my top coat. I'm using General Finishes High Performance Top Coat in Flat. This is my favorite top coat. I use it on everything. I did it on the drawers. I am going to go in and actually do 4 coats of this. So this is just the first one. The coats after this aren't very exciting because they really don't change color much. But here is the important part. Sanding in between coats of poly. So whatever you are using for top coat, you can't just keep putting top coat on top of top coat. You have to make sure you sand it first. This is what's going to give you that beautiful, soft, smooth, buttery finish and a gorgeous sheen. So this is a sanding sponge that I was using. It's a 330 grit, and it's actually pretty smooth, but it does what it needs to do. That was a light mist of water and a microfiber towel to get all of the dust. Barkeeper's friend on this gorgeous, gorgeous solid brass hardware, just to get this all cleaned up. I'm not going to touch it otherwise. This steel wool and Barkeeper's friend is all it needed. So let's take a moment and look back at where we started. This was kind of a hot mess. Had potential, but yep, it's been worn out. And here's where we are now. Let me know what you think in the comments.